Hey, Harvard hockey family. We are super excited you could join us today. My name is Haley Mullins, and I'm an HH alum from the class of 2018. I wore number 26, and I played forward for my 4 years at Harvard. I'm joined today by two former teammates who I was lucky enough to play with, who I will turn it to now so they can introduce themselves before we start.
Hi, HH. Sami Reber here, class of 2015. I wore number 12 and I was a forward as well for my 4 years at Harvard, and we're excited to talk to you today.
Hi, Miye here, class of 2016. I wore number 19. I got the chance to play on both of these guys' line, and excited to talk about the 2015 season today.
Great. So I think just before we start, for a little bit of background, we were all fortunate enough to be part of the 2014-2015 season where we played in the national championship game in Minnesota, actually against Minnesota. So Sami, she was a senior captain. Miye was a junior, and I was a freshman at that time. And it was certainly a season that we'll never forget. We have some great stories that we want to share with you today about that year and really just the journey to the national championship. So I think really where we should begin is I think Sami and Miye, you guys were both upperclassmen that year, and there was a huge transition from the year before to the 2014-2015 season. So can you guys talk a little bit about what it was like transitioning off of the year before, which happened to be an Olympic year, to that next season?
Sure. So like you said, 2014 was an Olympic year, and we had three Harvard hockey players on the team, as well as our head coach. Coach Stone was the head coach of the Olympic team. So needless to say, it was a super exciting time to watch from the Bright Landry Hockey Center. And going into 2015, we were getting our head coach and some absolute superstars back in the lineup.
We kind of just set off the season saying, okay, we've got nothing to lose, I guess. People don't expect us to, kind of live up to the Harvard hockey tradition that year. And we proved them wrong, which was really, really cool. And it was a battle. Short bench is always tough at this level, but we came together as a team, which was one of the most moving seasons I've ever been a part of, for sure. And leading into that 2014-2015 season, after losing to Wisconsin in that national tournament game, I think us returners really took it, to heart and said, okay, we got that far with a short bench and, people not believing in us. What could we do this next year in the 2014-2015 season with, an incredible freshman class coming in and those returners, as far as the Olympians go, getting Coach Stone back as well. I think it really played a big part in, kind of laying out the future success we could have that 2014-2015 season.
So, in addition to an awesome freshman class, we had the most stellar senior class that I certainly ever played with. Even my own senior class, and that's hard for me to say, but but Sami's class was truly, truly something else. I think there were 7 of you. Is that right, Sam?
Yep.
Yeah, and all 7 were, hugely impactful on and off the ice.
Having a huge team with so many different personalities and fun personalities really just made the freshman class feel so welcomed and like pumped about that year. So I think having all those returners just made it a really fun season right off the bat. But I mean, we can't forget about the new rink and the new locker room as well. Can you guys talk a little bit about like what that experience was like?
Yeah, so for 2013, 2014, our rink was getting renovated. And we were all super excited about it until we saw where we'd be spending that season, which was basically in a back closet for our locker room. And it definitely brought us closer together. But I certainly was spoiled by my freshman year. We had this huge, fancy locker room. It was by far the nicest locker room I'd ever been in. And so we all shared this little cramped, really skinny and narrow locker room for 2014. And for the whole preseason, the renovations weren't quite done. So we spent for the 2015 season all of preseason, and all of the off ice testing, on ice testing, all the grueling preseason practices that are 2 hours long, and then you go lift and everything. Until finally the week before McGill, we got to see the brand new renovation. So Sami, you could take it from there.
Yeah, gosh, that was an emotional day. To Miye's point, going through that preseason and just knowing, what you're going through as a team, but then knowing what kind of is at the end of that is that incredible renovation of the locker room and the facilities and everything that we definitely got spoiled with. I was fortunate enough to be one of the first to walk in that locker room with one of my classmates, Sarah Edney. And I remember walking in and just being completely in awe. It was an emotional moment for a lot of us, especially being a senior, having that opportunity to be in such an incredible facility and locker room my last year was something extremely special. And gosh, I really can't put into words other than I know we're all very, very thankful for the time and the energy and all the, the donations that were put into that facility, because it's arguably one of the best in the country, and we are fortunate enough to call it ours.
And the other thing that was kind of cool about the renovation was they did a little bit for kind of an outsider's perspective, but the majority of the improvements were really for the players. And our experience was so improved by, having just state-of-the-art training facilities and a weight room and, the most incredible locker room, as we've said, the lounge, video systems, all of that were just, it was so, we just all knew how lucky we were right from the start.
Haley, how did you react? I mean, coming in, that's your first college locker room. I mean, it's immaculate no matter what, whether you were in our closet our 2013, 2014 season, or you get to walk into that. What was your reaction and, your classmates?
Yeah, I remember when we first walked into the old locker room. So the freshmen were the last to arrive. So we obviously had like 3 or 4 people to a stall, and our gear was just like lying all over the floor, and like we were trying to shove like 8 shin pads in like one little compartment. And so it was, it wasn't too big of a deal because it was fun. We got to meet each other, and it really brought us closer, I'd say. But walking into that new locker room, it was an incredible experience. Like I felt so grateful to be part of a team that was so fortunate to have that, and especially coming off of a locker room where it was so small. We were so, tight, and it was a little bit challenging to walk into a locker room where it was just the most incredible thing ever. Was something I'll never forget. And, I just feel so lucky for that to have been my freshman year and to have enjoyed it for all 4 years. So I think that all really set up a lot of expectations for the upcoming season. All the Olympians coming back, Coach Stone coming back, a lot of injured players coming back. And then on top of that, a brand new facility for us and a brand new locker room. So I think that really set the season up, and I think we jumped right into it. But, we came out flying, and then I think our 6th or 7th game that year was against BC, a regular season game, and we ended up losing 2-10. So in your guys' opinion, why did that happen, and kind of how is that a turning point in our season?
Oh, a fond memory.
No, I like to forget about that game.
Yeah, I think so. It was a Friday after Thanksgiving. And shout out to Mrs. Gedman hosting, I know, me and Sami and a number of other out of towners for Thanksgiving every year. I'm not gonna say it was her fault, but the food was very delicious. So no, but we were so excited to play that game. They were the number 1 team in the country going in. We were, I don't know, maybe 3 or so. We knew that, like we've said in the setup to this season, we were so confident in what we could do that year. We had an amazing lineup, and we were just really excited to go play BC. It was probably our biggest test so far of the season. And it went about as poorly as it possibly could have gone. I will never forget that game. It was at BC, and I don't know when the wheels came off the wagon, but they came off and then just spun away so far out of reach that there was no hope by the 3rd period. And it was awful.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I do remember from that game that I, like to make myself feel better about it is we were tied at one point. We were tied 2-2. And, to Miye's point, I don't know what happened after that because we felt like we could obviously skate with them and play with them. And one thing that I think I really took to heart, and I'm sure, 90% of us on that team did, is I've never been a part of a team that's lost a hockey game by that much at a level that actually matters. And I think for a lot of us, it was kind of just a wake-up call. Hey, we're not invincible. And I'm glad that game happened at the beginning of the season, because who knows how it would have affected us later in the year. I remember walking upstairs after the game and I was extremely emotional. My mom was there in the stands, and I was like, as a senior, you're like, is this going to tell the tale for the rest of our season?
It was a blessing in disguise that we lost, because I know the senior class believed in us more than anything. But once that game happened, they really made all of us like realize that we need to work for it, and we're not just going to get it handed to us. Like, we have obstacles to face no matter what we believe in, and we really tried to prove that from that game on, I think. The next big game in our season that sort of set the tone for the postseason was the Beanpot. So Harvard, we came into the Beanpot with a record of 15 wins, 4 losses, and 1 tie. And I think that we were flying ever since after that BC loss. So we ended up playing BU. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about how that first game went?
We were at home for the Beanpot. The women's Beanpot rotates every 4 years, or every year it rotates. Every 4 years it's at home at Harvard. And we were so excited. Every year the Beanpot it's one of the most fun tournaments in the country, I think. And it's definitely one of the most fun games we play all year. It's always on a Tuesday. We never play on Tuesdays. You like wake up in the middle of the week and it's a game day. And the Beanpot has an amazing history on both the men's side and the women's side. Actually, quick side note, we have an alumni night every year. And one of the older alums remembers the first Beanpot, and actually their coach went out and bought to like a thrift store and like bought an actual Beanpot for the trophy for the first women's Beanpot. And so, knowing all that history, it's always so exciting. And we had BU to start. So we came out flying, and we were clearly, I think, that game, the much better team. And we wanted it more, and we ended up just absolutely smoking them. I don't remember the score, but it was a lot of goals.
9-2.
Okay, yeah. So not quite as bad as BC beat us, but close.
Yeah, so I think after that huge win, we were heading into the BC game the next week for the championship. And up until that point, BC was undefeated. We're coming off a huge win against BU. We're still on a really big win streak for us. And so we come into this Beanpot championship with a lot of history, a lot of tradition, and a lot on the line, just for honor as well. What do you guys sort of think the mindset was going into this game? And can you talk a little about how it felt to beat BC in the Beanpot Championship that year after they beat us 10-2 previously?
Going into that game, I think we knew that we could beat them. They had probably felt pretty good about their win against us earlier that year, but they were undefeated, so they had all the pressure on them. Beanpot Championship at our rink. They're coming to us. They hadn't lost yet. So everyone's thinking BC's going to win. BC's going to win. Again, all the pressure on them, which as players, you guys know that's tough. You can't sustain that forever. And we came in there with the mentality of, okay, we can beat them. We will beat them. And we knew it was going to be a battle. They were an incredible hockey team that year. They deserved all the recognition that they got. But we were feeling good. We had finally started to click really in that part of the season. And I think once that puck dropped, it was just all adrenaline, and the place was packed. The fans, really showed up for us that game. That's a huge rivalry in general. But then when you throw the Beanpot Championship on top of it, it really brings a lot of people too. So it was awesome. The atmosphere was incredible. More Harvard fans and BC fans, thankfully. And I think we really, just kind of ran with that. It ended up being a 3-2 game. And, I won't go through all the goals, but one play I think that was huge just to kind of set the tone of what we were willing to do to win that game was at the very, very, last couple seconds of the game. This one of their best defensemen has the puck in the slot. They had pulled their goalie and they're down 3-2. And my classmate, Sarah Edney, is a defenseman, and she's probably been out there for 3 minutes. She's just a warrior, and she's skating up to block that shot, and she gets taken down because she's going so hard with, again, probably 5 seconds left. But if that defenseman gets that shot off, it very well could have gone in, and she gets taken down. They get a penalty, and from then we knew the game was over. And it's just little things like that we were willing to do to make sure that we came away with that win was extremely special.
Hey, Harvard hockey fans. My name is Sydney Daniels, and I'm the assistant coach of the women's ice hockey team and former teammate of Haley, Sami, and Miye. Thank you for watching part 1 of our epic road to the 2015 National Championship. I was extremely fortunate to have been a part of the team, and it played a huge role in why I wanted to pursue a coaching position here at Harvard. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and be sure to check out part 2, which will be featured in next month's email. Go Crimson!